Hi, this is River, and I'm here with the second part of the review, the second review for lesson 83. And I'm doing the second part of it, which is the second review idea, which is to be practiced at night before you go to sleep. So this idea is my happiness and my function are one. My happiness and my function are one. All things that come from God are one. They come from oneness and must be received as one. Fulfilling my function is my happiness because both come from the same source. And I must learn to recognize what makes me happy if I would find happiness. Some forms that they give for applying the idea are: this cannot separate my happiness from my function. This cannot separate my happiness from my function. The next one is: the oneness of my happiness and my function remain wholly unaffected by this. The oneness of my happiness and my function remain wholly unaffected by this. And then the next one that they suggest are they. Oh goodness, who's they? All of the ones, the many of the one who were the voice coming through this book. Okay. Nothing, including this, can justify the illusion of happiness apart from my function. Nothing, including this, can justify the illusion of happiness apart from my function. So I imagine a situation that has to do with the world you see, kind of giving you this temporary feeling of happiness, but that is on a condition of the world, reflecting something to you that makes you feel happy. And like even this, it can't justify nothing, meaning this can't justify the illusion of happiness being apart from my function, which is the one God gave me, and my function is forgiveness. And the only true feeling of happiness comes from forgiving anything that comes up that threatens our feeling of happiness in this world, forgiving it, and that forgiveness is true happiness because it can only come from forgiveness. That's my interpretation of this. I also had this thought while I was recording this video before, and my son opened the door and interrupted the video. And I got frustrated with him because this is actually the third time I've recorded it. So, and my frustration, obviously there was no forgiveness when I was frustrated. And so I thought after that happened, the oneness of my happiness and my function remain wholly unaffected by this. So, here I am taking time to pray, remembering that this time is dedicated towards my practice, right? Or this practice. And someone comes in and interrupts, this practice. And my environment is now showing me there's no peace because I'm being interrupted. And then I'm frustrated. And when I read after the interruption, and I saw how quickly I got frustrated. Just like quickly like came up where I, told him, shut the door, I'm in the middle of a video, which isn't very peaceful or forgiving. And it kind of humbled me, here I am like really trying to practice, but can I actually practice, when something surprises me out of the blue, comes at me in my environment, disturbs my peace. Can I say the oneness of my happiness and my function remain wholly unaffected by this? Meaning that my happiness and my function to forgive and to, forgive, give love in any place where I'm being attacked, because that's a call for love, giving love and forgiveness to any situation that isn't, giving me peace, because I wanted peace and then I'm not finding peace. I think of another situation, lots of situations. I was driving to work and I was early, and my son was early, and we'd been running late in the morning, and then this tractor, like an actual farm tractor, which isn't common around here, was just right in front of us and going so slow. It was doing something with the trees on the side of the road, and right at rush hour. And I had to take a lot of deep breaths, and I felt myself wanting to get really mad. And I'm just thinking, here is a great time to practice. And there's this resistance to remembering the practice, So these situations are really frustrating and also an amazing opportunity to look within. So I am going to now stop talking, because this is supposed to be a quiet time to reflect on these. So I'm going to close my eyes and really think about this idea of the oneness of my happiness and my function remain wholly unaffected by this. So when I forgive, that's my true happiness. It's not this like temporary feeling of, although like joy and laughter is great, surprise comedy where you're just like laughing out of nowhere, that's great. But deep, deep happiness comes with that deep, deep ability to forgive, like instantaneously. Something happens and there's this deep feeling of, I can forgive anything that comes at me. Like my function is to give love, forgive anything coming at me. And just standing in that place with God, that oneness. So, for example, at the beginning it says all things that come from God are one. They come from oneness and must be received as one. Fulfilling my function is my happiness, because both come from the same source. So even the idea of like forgiveness being painful, like this is a struggle, this really hurt me, or this feels hard. Well, my happiness and my forgiveness are right there as one. I must learn to recognize what makes me happy if I would find happiness, like true happiness. Happiness is the deepest part of like my heart, where I rest, like where I rest my identity in this world. Like, how do I find that deep sense of happiness and peace? It's with this idea of deep forgiveness, deep like acknowledgement of my only job is, my only function is the one God gave me. My only movement out into this world is operating from like oneness with God, oneness with forgiveness, knowing everything that comes from God is one. So I'm gonna just sit with these ideas and stop talking. This cannot separate my happiness from my function. The oneness of my happiness and my function remain wholly unaffected by this. Nothing, including this, can justify the illusion of happiness apart from my function. Let's just close our eyes. And breathe with this Maybe allow your breathing to slow. And just sit with this idea. Everything that comes from God is one. My happiness and my function are one. And let's sit in this stillness and allow any relating thoughts to these ideas to come to you. Or just let thoughts drop away and sit with the breath. And if you need an anchor for this time with your eyes closed, you can repeat, or maybe you want to repeat with me. The oneness of my happiness and my function remain wholly unaffected by this. It keeps repeating in my mind over and over. The oneness of my happiness and my function remain wholly unaffected by this. I just keep thinking deep, deep forgiveness, deep, deep happiness. The oneness of my happiness and my function remain wholly unaffected by this. This meaning anything that happens to you in your life. Anything that happened today when you think back on your day. Anything that's sticking to you. The oneness of my happiness and my function remain wholly unaffected by this. Just breathing into that, I'm totally unaffected by this. My happiness and my function are one. Maybe take a really deep breath. Let it go. And then let's say it again. The oneness of my happiness and my function remain wholly unaffected by this. I'm not affected at all. Imagining like a shield, the anxiety, the anger, the sadness, the frustration, anything, the oneness of my happiness and my function remain wholly unaffected by whatever this is for you, for me. The oneness of my happiness and my function, deep, deep forgiveness. That's so deep that like anything superficial or deep that comes into our life, that part of us is wholly unaffected by whatever it is. And it's okay to say that. I am wholly unaffected by this situation because my function and my happiness are one. And I'm resting with my function, so I'm with my happiness. And I feel that happiness that can be unaffected by anything. It can't be shaken, it can't be hurt, it can't be challenged. It's always there. And now I feel gratitude towards God. Thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I'm just going to quickly remind you, while your eyes are closed, this review, the second review, a message is waiting for you while you sit in silence, dedicated towards silence and stillness with the message, the words. Allow that message to come to you in the silence. Your message is for you and for you alone. And then when you're ready, you can maybe softly open the eyes. And again, just some gratitude. Thank you, God, for giving me this function, allowing me to find this book, helping me come into presence, no matter the level of anxiety, stress, pain in my heart, fear in my life. Thank you for always being there for me. Just so grateful. And I acknowledge that everything good in my life comes from God. I don't really have any more words.